Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening again. It gives me great pleasure to join you this evening at the welcome dinner for the fourth Central Banking Conference of what we call the Centrale Bank van Curaçao and St. Martin. Firstly, let me on behalf of the government of St. Martin, allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the speakers and participants who have traveled to St. Martin for this conference. I trust you will enjoy our hospitality and find your stay on our beautiful island fruitful. In 2010, St. Martin became an autonomous country within the Dutch Kingdom. During the negotiations regarding the constitutional changes, it was decided that Curaçao and St. Martin would become a monetary union with a common central bank and currency. St. Martin has always expressed its wish, as one of the two shareholders of the bank, that the office in St. Martin be equipped to function as a full-fledged institution with more presence in our community. Therefore, I applaud the initiative of choosing St. Martin as the location for the first Central Banking Conference of the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin. In addition, tomorrow's open session for the public, where the bank's tasks and responsibilities will be covered, is a positive step in the right direction. Fact is, if we were to measure the level of financial literacy of our people, including several of us in authority, we would not qualify to even be in the banking kindergarten. But take heart, we are certainly not alone. This is what Senator Barry Goldwater once said about banking. And he said, most Americans have no real understanding of the operation of the international moneylenders. An industrialist, Henry Ford, saw this as a blessing in disguise, because he said, it is well that the people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. The revolution I hope would be coming out of this conference would be how to make our financial system work for the ordinary man and woman in St. Martin, and by extension, throughout the rest of the Caribbean. Over the course of the past 5 years, political discussions have taken place with respect to the benefits and cost of the monetary union and whether we should proceed with it. In these discussions, official dollarization for St. Martin has also been considered as a viable alternative. Although from a political point of view, we might have our own opinion on this subject, I am glad that today we have had the opportunity to learn from the experiences of a long-term monetary union in the region, the Eastern Caribbean Monetary Union. Ladies and gentlemen, besides the ongoing discussions about the exchange rate system, St. Martin has faced several challenges since becoming an autonomous country within the Dutch Kingdom. One of these challenges was to set up a new government apparatus, of which several tasks used to resort under the umbrella of the former Netherlands Antilles in Willemstad, Curaçao. Another challenge has been adherence to the strict budgetary rules imposed by the Kingdom Act of Financial Supervision and controlled by the Financial Supervision Board, known as the CFT. Furthermore, similar to most countries, St. Martin will have to take measures related to the healthcare and pension systems to to reduce their burden on the public budget and make them financially sustainable. Nevertheless, despite these challenges, St. Martin has been able to post real economic expansion over the past 5 years with an average real GDP growth of 0.9%. Economic growth, which has been driven primarily by the tourism sector, which is St. Martin's main economic pillar. However, we are aware that the tourism sector is very vulnerable to external shocks, particularly given its high dependence on the North American market. Therefore, we do realize that efforts are needed to further develop the tourism sector and attract more visitors from other countries besides North America. In addition, developing and strengthening other sectors in our economy is necessary to make St. Martin a more diversified economy. Ladies and gentlemen, an average annual growth of 0.9% is not sufficient to improve the well-being of every St. Martin citizen. To achieve a higher growth path, we need to invest in the economy. Both public and private investments are necessary. Public investments are crucial to make the business climate more attractive. We need to further improve our infrastructure, strengthen our government apparatus, improve the quality of our education system, and develop our capital market. At the same time, private investments are crucial because in the medium and long term, private investments lead to productivity growth and hence higher economic growth. Therefore, I would like to call on the financial sector, many of whose representatives are participating in this conference, to support more proactively important investment projects in St. Martin that will enhance our growth prospects. However, to improve the well-being of the people of St. Martin, economic growth must be inclusive. In other words, we should aim not only at achieving higher growth figures, but also that growth should translate into less poverty and inequality. One of the barriers that we are currently facing in this context is a high youth unemployment rate. High and persistent youth unemployment has several individual and social costs and risks, including risky behavior of the unemployed youth and fiscal burdens to our society. Therefore, the government of St. Martin will introduce an active labor market program that, in close collaboration with the private sector, provides a quick employment solution for a number of our young people. The youngsters that will participate in this program will be placed in a job that aligns best with their specific set of skills, abilities, and personal characteristics and interests. At the same time, they will receive life skills training. Furthermore, the youngsters will be enrolled in a compulsory savings plan to teach them the value of money and saving for the future. In my opinion, the compulsory savings plan is imperative if we want people to progress. Therefore, I think that tomorrow's session on behavioral economics and its impact on personal finance is a very relevant and important topic. Hopefully, this session will provide us with more insights into how the governments and the financial sector can effectively promote financial education and a better management of personal finances. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, although St. Martin has been facing several challenges, we also have a great opportunity through combining efforts of the public and private sectors to achieve a higher and more inclusive growth path. Conferences such as this one, hosted by the Centrale Bank van Curaçao and St. Martin, are important in that context as they provide us with best practices and new ideas on how we can foster the further development and progress of our country. I wish you most heartily a very productive conference. To those of you who are visiting, welcome once again to our friendly island, and let me remind you that you would be doing yourselves a great injustice if you do not make time to enjoy some of our most unique offerings. Thank you for your attention, and thanks for giving me this opportunity. Good night.
You know, when we, as Shelton indicated, we've been struggling at this for quite some time. And so I want to just give you a historical perspective and then indicate to you where we are going and where we've come from originally. So I'll start with a historical perspective where we started. And our monetary arrangements in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union emerged from about the mid-20th century when they established international banks at that time. Barclays Bank, DCU, and Royal Bank of Canada began issuing their own currency under the authority of the British government. And the British government had given this authority for the issuance of this currency, and it was used by most or all the English-speaking countries in the British colonies at that time, and therefore authorized to use them as currency notes for transaction purposes. Then in 1950, the British Caribbean Currency Board, headquartered in Trinidad, was established, and it was the first monetary authority and served Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Barbados, and the territories of the ECCU now, namely Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Then we began to see the quest for independence, and in the 60s, Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana decided to go their separate ways, and so they withdrew from the BCCB, the Currency Board. As a result, the Eastern Caribbean Currency Authority was formed. That institution was headquartered in Barbados and established in 1974, and prior to that, rather, 60s right through to 74 thereabouts, when Barbados then decided that they wanted to become independent and withdrew from the BCCB, or the ECCA at that time. So the Little Eight, as they were known then, decided, well, since Barbados withdrew, they moved the headquarters of the ECCA to St. Kitts by common agreement of the 8 governments. At that time, Anguilla was not entirely a member or entirely a participatory member, and the original treaty did not include Anguilla in the arrangement. And then in 1981, the OECS was established under the Treaty of Bastia. And one of the components of the treaty was the establishment of a central bank, or central bank facilities. And therefore, the ECCB was born in 1983. Anguilla then later signed on in 1989. So 1983, we had seven countries, and then Anguilla joined in 1989. Now, the charter of the ECCB is a remarkable instrument, and why I say that it is something that is work in progress, there's so many elements in our view of the ECCB agreement, that we have not really touched in terms of the mandate of the central bank. We have skirted around some of the provisions. Essentially, the ECCB is in the agreement in parts 8 and 9 of the agreement that we are bankers to governments and bankers to commercial banks. And that's essentially where we operate. But there are other arrangements within the ECCB agreement, like the issuing of development bonds and the like. We have not really touched on that as yet. But that, I think, over the next few years, I think we will be touching on these as well. But the charter of the ECCB lists 4 basic elements. That is the regulator to regulate the availability of money and credit, promote the maintenance of monetary stability, promotion of credit and exchange conditions and a sound financial structure conducive to balanced growth and development of the economies of the ECCB territories, and active promotion remains consistent with its other objectives, the economic development of the ECCB territories. And I want to focus on point 4 because elements 1, 2, 3 are essentially things that a central bank will do. Availability of money and credit, promotion of monetary and maintenance of monetary stability, credit and exchange conditions. These are things that a typical central bank will do. But point number 4 gives it now a development mandate. Of course, it has to be consistent with 1, 2, and 3. And this is where most of our work has been concentrated on in terms of developing economic development of the ECCU territories. Now, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has some features that I want to point out to you. The ultimate decision-making body of the central bank is the Monetary Council. Now, the Monetary Council is comprised of ministers with responsibility for finance. That's the apex body of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. So the Monetary Council will meet at least 3 times in a calendar year and to have discussions primarily on monetary and credit conditions. That is, in the agreement, it says that the ECCB Monetary Council will meet to get a report from the governor on monetary and credit conditions. There are 2 essentially monetary tools that we use as the minimum savings rate and the discount rate, essentially. So the Monetary Council will get a report from the governor on conditions, and then they may deliberate on whether they should manipulate either one of those 2 key monetary policy tools. Then the central bank has a board of directors, and comprising 1 appointee from each of the member territories, the 8 member territories, the deputy governor and the governor. The governor serves as the chair of the board of directors. The board is responsible for policy and administration and will make the appropriate recommendations to the Monetary Council for their approval. So a typical board meeting will include a discussion on monetary and credit conditions, financial stability in a broad sense, even though that we are responsible essentially for the supervising and regulating licensed commercial banks, but in giving an outlook, because remember one of our elements in our mandate is to report on financial stability. So we have then the opportunity to speak to the board of directors and then the Monetary Council by extension. What's the condition on financial stability, not only in commercial banking, but the non-bank financial institutions as well. And that is, as I say, work in progress, because our good friend Shelton is now assisting us in developing a more robust model for reporting on financial stability. Now, the central bank has functional departments, each headed by a director, who report to the deputy governor and the managing director, respectively. So there are two divisions at the central bank, one responsible for monetary policy, policy in a broader sense, research, bank supervision, statistics, currency. And then there's the systems and administration division, which is headed by the managing director. We'll look at all matters related to systems and administration. So that will include our management information system, our HR, our support services management department, or anything related to the administration and operation of the institution will be allocated to the managing director as the individual responsible for that division. The managing director is the chief staff appointee. I like to characterize that position as the cabinet secretary, if you want to give a sort of association between operations of government and the central bank. So as the chief staff appointee, the managing director has that responsibility. The governor and the deputy governor are political appointees. So we are there at the whims and fancies of politicians. But the agreement says that both the deputy governor and the governor are appointed on fixed-term renewable contracts. So, for instance, today is the last day of my contract. Don't worry, I got it renewed, so I can represent the central bank. So what are some of the successes of the ECCB? Even before the creation of the ECCB in 1983, the EC dollar, that currency that is issued by the ECCB presently, was fixed at a parity of $2.70 EC to $1 US. Prior to that, prior to 1976, when the ECCA was the currency authority, the parity of the EC dollar was to the pound sterling at a rate of $4.80 EC to £1. And then in 1976, the parity was changed to 270 to 1 US. 270 because that was the equivalent of $4.80 in US at that time. And that parity has been there since 1976. So this year will be 40 years since we've had that parity established. There's been a lot of discussion on whether the parity should be changed. Every time that there are some stresses and strains in our economies, some pundits say, well, we should change the parity. But that is so sacrosanct that it is not likely to be changed in the immediate future. The reason being is that, point number two, that most of the decisions of the ECCB at the Monetary Council has to be on a unanimous basis. So all 8 countries, for instance, if the parity has to be changed, all 8 countries will have to agree. And that's, I think, a pretty difficult proposition. I'll give you a little story on that. One year, in about the 80s or so, one of our member countries went to the IMF for some support because the economy was not doing too well. So at that time, the mandate of the IMF, and Shelton will remember that, was we should devalue, because in fact it happened in Trinidad, it happened in Guyana, it happened in Jamaica. So that was the mantra, you have to devalue. So the particular member of the council said, well, I have to go to my monetary council because we have to agree, all of us have to agree to change the parity. So please allow me to go to the monetary council at the next meeting and I will put the proposition to them. So the monetary council member went to the meeting and says, we have gone to the fund and we have a program with the fund, and one of the conditions of the fund is that we should devalue our currency. So of course there was no agreement. There was no unanimous agreement to that. And so she went back. I give it away. She went back to the IMF and said, well, I went to my colleagues. They said, no. What can I do? There's nothing I can do. And that was one of the truth tests of whether at that time whether the currency should be devalued based on external influence. It has not happened since then, and I wouldn't say that it won't happen in the future, but it will be very, very tough because every member of the Monetary Council to date has said that that is a no-no.